Welcome to this video tutorial from the National Union of Students. This tutorial looks at using custom reports on the NSS results site to run in-depth analysis on your National Student Survey data, breaking it down by more than one variable or answering queries that you enter. This tutorial is aimed at people who have watched our previous video, Custom Reports 1. Both videos are aimed at Students' Union, university or college staff with access to internal NSS data. Building on the previous video that introduced custom reports and showed you how to create a bespoke spreadsheet of all courses in the department, this video tutorial will show you how to use custom reports for two further purposes. We'll break down your organisation's data by more than one variable, and we'll create a bespoke group of comparator institutions to help you compare your competitors to similar institutions or to those local to you. First, we'll look at a breakdown of your data by more than one variable. Custom reports are the only way to access this. You can't do this in your static spreadsheet. As an example of how this analysis can be useful, I present to you a scenario. My education officer has heard anecdotally that female engineering students are less happy than male students, possibly due in part to only 20% of the engineering student body being female. The NSS can give us insight into this in several ways. First, does the data back up what we're hearing? Secondly, if this is true, what areas are a particular issue for our female engineers? Thirdly, NSS data can point us towards where we might need to undertake further research to better understand our data. As previously, we need to log into the results site at nss.techsoonatech.com, not forgetting to tick the Terms and Conditions box. Click on Custom Reports on the left-hand side. We're going to stick with your organisation's data for this exercise, so we'll click Create Report. As previously, first select the type of student you want to see. We recommend choosing taught data. Next, we need filters. Leave the pre-applied filter for the current year in place and add in a filter to only include engineering students. You could do this by department if you know your codes, by selecting from a list of course titles, or by using subjects. I'm going to apply a filter for subject level 2. When I've selected subject level 2, a list of all the subjects at this level appears. Holding Control to select subjects that aren't next to each other, I select everything that's covered by my university's engineering department. That's civil and chemical engineering, electronic and electrical engineering, and mechanically based engineering. Next, I need row labels. Because we want to know what female students think compared to male students, we select gender. Now we choose the questions. For my initial inquiry, I'm going to look at the section headings. If I find there's a big difference in one or two areas, I might want to look at the individual questions in those sections, but for now I want a quick overview. So I hold down Control and select all the section headings, which are highlighted in grey. Finally, I select my metrics. For this exercise, I'm only interested in the percentage agree score, so I select this. I review all my parameters and then click Generate Report. Initially, I get one row of data back, which shows the average satisfaction for each section for these subject areas. To show the different results by gender, I need to click on the green plus sign next to gender. When this is expanded out, you can see the difference between the genders. Indeterminate will always return no data, as gender is currently binary in the NSS. Let's take a closer look at these results. Remember the three things we wanted to find out? First of all, the data clearly does not support the anecdotal evidence. It actually shows the opposite of our hypothesis. Female students are more satisfied than male students, particularly in the areas of organisation and management and personal development. We may wish to conduct further research based on this evidence, or we may decide that there doesn't appear to be an issue after all. Further research we could cover could include comparing the scores for these sections to other courses in the university or other engineering departments. As the course is 80% male students, these scores may show that the department as a whole is underperforming in these areas. We could look at NSS comments to see if any themes are more evident in male students' comments compared to female students. We could run focus groups to explore why female students perceive themselves to be less satisfied, and maybe why male students aren't reporting their dissatisfaction until third year through an anonymous survey. If you like, pause the video here and run an analysis on your own data. Choose something that interests you. Maybe you've heard it anecdotally, or it matches one of your union's priorities. If you can't think of anything, choose one of my examples. Subjects versus ethnicity. You could pick a specific subject, look at the university or college overall, or use two row labels to compare ethnicities for every subject. This could be an interesting addition to a campaign on the BME attainment gap. You could look at your section headings by age and mode of study. What happens when you have a part-time student who's also mature? Do either of these impact on satisfaction? And finally, you might want to focus on the Students' Union question, looking how students from each gender in different departments rate you. Analysis like this in the past has shown a link between satisfaction with the union and the physical distance of the department's home building from the union. See what you can find. In the next part of this tutorial, we'll cover how to create a bespoke group of comparator institutions. Before we begin, a brief health warning is necessary. NSS data was not designed to enable institutional level comparisons, which is why HEFCE creates benchmarks for institutions on overall satisfaction in order to contextualise their result and give them realistic targets. Having said that, the old quote, "all models are wrong, but some are useful," applies here. If you can use data from your comparator institutions to make a case for change that will benefit students, you should do so. Comparing subject-level data across institutions is exactly what the survey was designed for, so these comparisons are valid, but make sure that you take into account the differences between the institutions you're comparing to ensure that your findings are as useful as possible. As an example scenario, I have a chemistry course rep who's come to me with issues about the learning resources on her course. She says her course mates are very unhappy that they have to pay for their own lab coats, and that it's very annoying that there are never enough working Bunsen burners for the whole class. She wants to make the best argument she possibly can to try and persuade her course leader to improve things. Thinking back to my A-level in English literature, I remember doing a lot of comparing and contrasting. Maybe this could be an effective way to use NSS data to argue for change. When you're thinking about which institutions to compare, try and pick those that you are similar to, comparable to, or in competition with. Ask student reps to think about where else they applied to study their subject. Think about which institutions are most frequently mentioned in meetings as comparators or competitors. Which institutions or departments look similar to yours in the ways that matter to you? Maybe a local comparison would be useful to see how you compare to other institutions in the same area. Whichever your group, make sure there are enough similarities to make the comparison useful. When you have an idea of which institutions you'd like to compare with, we'll go back into Custom Reports. This time, we select all organisations' data and click Create New Report. There are two ways you could run your inquiry. You could either add in a filter and manually select all the institutions you're interested in, or you could create a group. If you create a group, you can quickly run different analyses on the same group of institutions' data. I'll show you how to do this now. Click on Add New Group. The site will warn you that you're leaving your custom report. Click OK and you'll come to your Groups page. Click Create New Group. This page allows you to find and select the institutions you want to compare. You can search for each by name if you wish. If I enter the search term Manchester, you can see 5 institutions appear. If I want to add one of these to my list, I'd make sure they were checked off and click Save Group. This will take you to this page. Give your group a name and a description and select Taught Data. Click Save. If you wanted to, you could then click Edit Group and go back in to add more institutions or to change the ones you've selected. I'll go back to the beginning and show you other ways to find and select your comparator institutions. Rather than finding institutions individually, you could also select by type of provider, higher education or institution or further education college, by nation, for example all the universities in Scotland, or by English region. In my scenario, my chemistry course rep is a student at a London university, so I'll select only HEIs in London for my group. You can reduce the amount of starred data you get back by filtering out only institutions that offer the subject you're looking for, in my case chemistry. Click on Search. Here you can see that my search has returned 12 universities in London that offer chemistry. I'll save the group. Give the group an accurate name and description so that you can find it again and know which institutions are included. Then click Save. You'll see your group has appeared on the list of groups. Now we've defined our group, we go back into Custom Reports by clicking Reports on the left-hand side. Again, select all institutional data and create new report. You can now see that the group I've just created appears in the drop-down list. Select it. Next, I select my filters. I've already used my group to filter out the institutions I'm interested in, but I don't want their overall scores. I want to compare the results for chemistry, so I need to add a subject filter. You could do this at department level, course title level, or use the JACS coding. I'm going to choose JACS Principal Subject, which will show me results for all courses where the major subject is chemistry. I make sure I've only selected chemistry and save the filter. Next, I want my row items to label the data. I'm interested in which institution the results come from, so I need to label my data with taught institution. A list of every UK institution will appear, but don't worry, your group filter will have removed the majority of them. Next, I select my questions. My query is about learning resources, so I'll select the section heading for learning resources and the 3 individual questions that sit within it. Finally, I select my metrics. Again, I'm only interested in percentage agree, so I select this and click Generate Report. Because of the large data set the website is working with, it might take a few seconds for your report to appear. When it does, you can check that all the details match up to the report you hope to run. As before, first of all you'll see aggregate scores. To break these down by individual institution, click the green plus sign, or alternatively click Expand All Rows. Here you can see the final report. You can see from the data that if my course rep is studying chemistry at Queen Mary, she would have quite a good case for change on her course, as the scores are notably lower than in other London chemistry departments. She might want to find out what Imperial or London Met do differently in terms of resources to give suggestions for change. If you want to save your report to the website, scroll up the page and click Save. You'll be able to share the report with other users if you wish. Alternatively, you can export the report and save it as a spreadsheet by clicking Export to Excel. Any analysis you do on organisations' public data is publishable, so you don't need to worry about keeping it internal. Hopefully this analysis has given my chemistry course rep the persuasive argument she needs to make changes on her course. She can point to her institution's comparators and competitors and suggest improvement based on practice elsewhere. Why not run a few reports of your own, comparing your institution to others? Examples of the types of reports that you could run include universities or colleges in the local area, universities in the same mission group as you, or institutions your place compares itself to. It might be interesting to highlight particularly low-scoring departments or subjects by comparing them to their equivalents. Thank you for watching. If you have any queries, please contact nss@nus.org.uk.